Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi, and thanks everyone for such a warm welcome. It's really lovely to be here with you. I first just want to call out my producing partner, Jenny Kamen, who's a member here. She's on a cross-country flight with her 1-year-old Avi right now, so we hope that's going okay. I'm not sure if I'm going to inspire, but we'll see. I hope. But no, to introduce myself again, my name is Drew. I'm a Jewish film producer raised in Philadelphia and based in Brooklyn now. And since 2020, I've been producing this independent film called What Will I Become, which is now almost ready to be released. It'll hit the festival circuit, and then it will be on PBS in 2027. Yes, that was good news. We'll get to that. That was very exciting. The film itself stems from a disturbing statistic, which is that according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, 50%, that's 50, of trans boys have attempted suicide. Now, as a cis lesbian, when I learned that, I was shocked and horrified. However, the directors of the film, Lexi Bean and Logan Rozos, who are both trans, were not surprised at all. In fact, they're both suicide survivors themselves. In What Will I Become, Lexi and Logan unravel why their trans-masculine community is particularly vulnerable to living and dying quietly. We explore the stories of two trans boys who lived very different lives, soft-spoken Kyler Prescott and homecoming king Blake Brockington. The film traces the joys and challenges of their life, their tragic deaths by suicide, the resulting media attention, and the larger aftermath within their communities. This is around the time in my pitch when I use a little Jewish humor and I deadpan, and it's a comedy. It's not, but I can't help myself, and people always look at me, but you know. While it's not a comedy, there is a lot of lightness in the film, because we say this film is just as much about life as it is about death. Within the film, we also uplift several trans-led resources within little vignettes within the film that offers more of a nuanced understanding of what different types of suicide prevention looks like. Now, this film is Lexi and Logan's directorial debut. They were drawn to the film and by their lived experience. And so my role as a producer is to come in and sort of take their vision and bring it to life and take them through the filmmaking process. Every film requires a different part of me, a different set of hats. And I do want to acknowledge that this particular film has been very challenging and very heavy with a lot to carry. And it's impacted me and transformed me. Now, as filmmakers making this film, our job was very clear. We were remembering with clarity and love two boys who are no longer here. To go one step further, our real goal was to conjure their presence with authenticity and texture so that audiences like you could meet them. In a sense, we were tasked with remembering Blake and Kyler back to life. Now I'm gonna share a bit about both boys and how we approach this remembering and how we tell their stories. But before I do want to acknowledge that, frankly, I'm not the ideal person from our team to be talking to you. Almost our entire crew is LGBTQ or directly impacted by suicide, but our creative leads across directing, writing, editing, music composition are all trans artists. This is very much a T for T production. But at the same time, well, and often I'm the only cis person in the room, which I highly recommend, it's fantastic. But one thing I've learned through this process is that trans people should not and cannot be the only ones advocating for their rights and for their lives. It's on us as cis allies, collaborators, friends, and family to use our voices. So I thank you again for being here with me and listening to what I have to say about this film. The ideology that grounds our film is simple. Suicide is not an individual failure. It's a social failure. It is society choosing to make certain futures feel impossible. It's the result of rigid gender expectations, broken support systems, and constant pressure on trans boys to perform masculinity. This all wears trans boys down until they think that help is not for them. Now, Blake Brockington was a charismatic, outspoken Black teen activist who loved playing music in the marching band, playing rugby, and building community both online and in his hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina, the Bible Belt. Though he had a complicated relationship with his family, he spent his adolescence in foster care. He was deeply loved, with a large web of friends and thousands of supporters online. He became the first openly trans homecoming king in North Carolina, an act of courage that brought him national attention and an avalanche of backlash. Blake's visibility was a point of pride, but it took a toll on him. And that kind of rise and fall of what it means to be that visible is a lot of what we explore in the film around his story. Now, on the other hand, Kyler Prescott was a sensitive, autistic boy with a gentle, non-traditional masculinity, and he was from San Diego, California, a pretty liberal area. If you don't mind the military, but you know. Kyler loved animals, also loved music, he was a pianist, and the quiet safety of home. Unlike Blake, Kyler lived mostly in a small family circle. He wasn't very social. And his story arc shows how fully loved he was, yet how even that love could not shield him from a world that made it hard for him to imagine a future as himself. So, how do you memorialize two boys who are no longer here in a strictly visual medium? This was our challenge. We were lucky with Blake because he left behind a lot of really rich archival material, some of which you'll see later today if you stick around. There was actually a short film that was made about him when he was in high school from college students when he was running for homecoming king. So we had all these wonderful interviews with him so he could speak for himself in the film. He was also a Tumblr celebrity. I can't tell if anyone knows what that means here, but I see some nodding. He had thousands of followers on Tumblr, and he also just wrote thousands of posts. So we had all this really great kind of perspective on what was on his mind all the time. That was such a gift. And that allowed us to ground the sections of the film around Blake in his own words. And we also interviewed many, many community members to kind of add color to the story. So we interviewed more than a dozen of Blake's friends and mentors. And almost every time Lexi and Logan sat down with someone, they were thanked for giving Blake's community a chance to speak. And that really surprised us. People told us, often through tears, that they hadn't spoke about Blake or the events leading up to his death in years, in a long time. And there was something healing about being able to say his name and share their memories. This part wasn't on camera, but it became a fabric of the film and kind of part of the ethos that we shared, which is coming together as a community to remember together. Across the country in San Diego, we had a very different kind of challenge in that we had almost no archival material from Kyler's life. There was only a single video of him, very limited photographs, and one written piece, which again you'll see featured later. So we worked very closely with his parents, Catherine and Carl, who were excited is the wrong word, but were grateful and glad to bravely contribute to the story and are featured in the film. One issue we had, again, was we weren't really able to show Kyler in any way, and that's really hard in a film. So what we did was we worked with a wonderful stop-motion animator, and we created an animated form of Kyler that was made from his piano sheet music. And that was a way that we were able to kind of give his form life in a different way and allow audiences to meet him. When we first started working on the Kyler part of the story, to be honest, my producer brain was on high alert because there was so little to work with. His story is so much quieter than Blake's, with fewer entry points, and I worried about an audience being able to access a kid who wasn't well documented in the same way. But Lexi and Logan, smartly, reminded me that in Kyler's story, the goal was simply to get his spirit right. And the hope was that people will recognize themselves in Kyler's quiet way, even through animation, and that might help save the lives of kids like him. Now, finding creative solutions and to narrative challenges, that's part of filmmaking. Every film has those kind of challenges. The hardest part of the challenge of this film lies ahead as we release it into the world, a world where trans people are being targeted and pushed out of public life. When we received PBS funding and a slot through ITBS, honestly, I was shocked because public television has been under such attack from the current administration. I think, and that shows that the fact that our film made it through, it was a reminder to us of just how urgent this work is and how there are people out there who really believe in this and want to support us. And that's really given us, our team, a lot of energy to get to this next phase. So yes, we made a film, yay. But we cannot assume that this film is just going to find its audience, not in a country passing hundreds of anti-trans bills and restricting LGBTQ content in schools, which is a huge audience for us. So we've been strategizing. After we locked the film, we got back into the room, and we spent the last 6 months building a coalition of 50-plus organizations, including GLSEN, the Ali Forney Center, GLAAD, Brave Trails, Sound Mind Live, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and many more. We're planning screenings across the country in schools, community centers, faith spaces, movie theaters, hopefully. We're planning for on-site therapists, safe spaces for reflection away from the screenings, and educational tools that we developed in partnership with Occidental College to allow for more meaningful discussions in education. Our goals for What Will I Become's impact are simple: suicide prevention, a space for remembrance, and nuanced education. We're especially excited to offer this film to care professionals who rarely receive training in these areas. I do believe that through this film about remembering those lost, we will create space to help save lives for those still with us. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that films can do. I'd be lying if I said this has been an easy process. It hasn't. It's weighed very heavily on me every day for the last 5 years, and my team who live this every day. And through that, honestly, as I've reflected on my journey, I've found myself turning time and again to my Jewish identity as I've carried the heavy responsibility of this work. In my relationship to Judaism, memory is not something that we hold quietly or privately, definitely not quietly. We treat remembering as a call to action. And as we mark the Trans Day of Remembrance, a day that asks us to face this loss directly, I'm grateful that our tradition gives us language for this every day, not just this one day. We are taught that when someone can no longer speak for themselves, the act of remembering, of storytelling, becomes communal, and it becomes a blessing. And I've returned to that a lot, and I'm grateful to share that in a space with folks who I think understand what I mean. So if you're wondering how you can help our mission, something you're interested in supporting, please reach out to me. I'm not sure if there's a link. I'm not sure if it made it into the program, but you could reach out. My name's Drew Dickler, drew.dickler@gmail, that I'll be around. I'm really interested in connecting with folks who have ideas about how to grow this impact campaign, both in terms of who we can talk to. If you have ideas about fundraising, if you might want to donate, please find me. We're grateful for every kind of support as we build our coalition. And if you're able to stay after Oneg, I will be showing a short trailer and 2 clips. I'm going to show a clip from Blake's life and a clip from Kyler's so you can get to know them. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time.